From the John DeVita Broadcast Center, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Armchair Experts with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich on Wednesday, September the 30th, the year of our Lord, 2015. And now, with their eyes open and beautiful color in their face and breathing on their own, here is Jim and Rich.
Hey, hey, hey.
Oh, beautiful.
I love you, John.
I just pinching my cheeks before I come in here just to make it look like I'm rosy red. And, you know, talk about color there. Like I said before we got started there, Mr. DeVita, you got yourself a bit of sun. You're looking healthy.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I wish I felt that way, really.
Well,
But anyways,
if you look good, that counts.
That counts for something.
That's right. It's more important to look good than to feel good.
Oh, jeez.
Yes. All right, so sitting here with the Hall of Famer. Holy
Hey,
crap.
thanks for mentioning that.
The
Jim.
Hall of Famer. He's got his name up on a wall, and it doesn't involve any law enforcement agency looking for him.
That was fun. We had a fun time on Saturday.
Yeah, good.
So what do we? Jim, a lot of things are going on in Chicago sports.
Yeah, and I thought, well, we were going to
We're going to have Al Marks.
We were going to have Al Marks, and now we come in and we're unprepared, which means this is about normal for
It's
us.
the usual thing.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you. You texted me You texted me yesterday and said that Jared Allen had been traded to
Right.
the Panthers, or that was
Right.
the rumor at that point.
Right, and then it was.
I'm at a softball game last night, and I thought I overheard a guy say that Bostic had been traded, and
I confirm.
I heard accurately because and Jim Matthews would love this because he's always telling me I need a hearing aid. Now I'm from here to that door, away from this guy. I heard him say Bostic was traded, 6th round draft choice, got the whole thing right. I think it's just Matthews doesn't speak right, or he doesn't say anything worth hearing. I don't
Maybe
know.
that's it. I think we shut down after
Yeah,
a
I
while
think that's
listening
what it
to
is.
him.
But Bostic also was traded, and I texted you that, and you hadn't heard up to that point. Then you checked it, and you texted me back the correct information.
Right.
And what do you think? What do you think about all this?
I don't think as far as Jared Allen, Jared Allen to me was essentially a non-entity in his year and change here. I think it was a bad contract when they gave him, what was it, $32 million, and 15 of it was guaranteed.
Yeah.
The Bears are on the hook for most of it this year. I think Carolina has to pick up, like what I read somewhere, like $800,000 something for the balance of the year. And 16 and 17 are not guaranteed.
Yeah.
For Allen. So as far as Carolina is concerned, it's deals got upside and not much risk dollar wise.
Yeah, I actually, I apologize. I was sort of angling at, not looking so much at salary or, what Carolina was going to pick up. In my mind,
Carolina's picking up a decent defensive player for their schemes.
See, what I'm thinking about more, Jim, is first off, I like the way. I'm probably going to be the only person who says they like the way the Bears are doing something they're doing, but I do.
Well,
I would say this because you know what? Because you get the usual. Everybody is really a follower, I think. Once a couple people start chirping about how bad it is, everybody says how bad it is, and it may not really be as bad as everybody says. My thing is, what I like is that from the coach's point of view, John Fox I'm talking about, you take the players that you have, and obviously you're not going to cut Jared Allen or John Bostic.
No, you're not.
Okay, you go forward with them. You try your best. After 3 games, you have enough information. You evaluate the situation. Okay, we need to go forward in a different way. From Ryan Pace's point of view, you're looking at the more overall picture. So you get rid of Allen and you get rid of Bostic and you get some draft choices
Right.
that you need to start.
Right.
You need to use to start
Right.
stockpiling more talent.
Yeah.
And even though they're sixth rounders, you can get serviceable players in the sixth round.
You can
As you have said before, when you sort of researched some of that.
some of your better picks
Sure.
have come in the later rounds.
Sure.
Especially on the side of the ball where they need the most help, and that's on the defense.
But I found it interesting, Jim, and I think what's going to happen is I'm hoping anyway. I think you'll see the defense get a little bit sharper as the season progresses. And a couple things here. I had mentioned to you when we texted back and forth that I thought Lamar Houston, and Willie Young might be next. And the paper actually, in one of the articles about the Bears in the Sun-Times, alludes to that's
Yeah.
a possibility.
Yeah, because
And-
I thought that this weekend, because wasn't Young a healthy scratch?
Young was a healthy scratch, and they're saying which is
Which made me wonder.
well, part of the deal, at least what John Fox is saying, and I'll buy this, but it doesn't mean anything different for Willie Young, is that he was a healthy scratch, so they could have a stronger special team presence from whoever they put in
Whoever
that
they
spot.
brought up on that.
What I think is happening is, let's take John Bostic first. I think right now they're satisfied with McClellan and Jones, and they're a work in progress because these guys haven't been inside linebackers
Right.
in the past.
Right.
But Bostic would just tend
You're
to
not-
probably confuse the situation
Yeah,
a little bit. In
Jones-
terms of who you're going to play, how much you're going to play him.
Yeah. Bostic is not going to get more snaps. Wasn't going to get more snaps
Right.
than Jones. They're kind of keying on
Right.
him.
So it might provide some playing time for a younger guy like Temu, who, John Fox is not afraid to play young guys, and especially he's got a nice track record on undrafted free agent young guys.
Yeah.
The other thing is, to me, when you get rid of Jared Allen and you have, say you have somebody like Willie Young inactive, I think defensively, you had a real traffic jam of players at one position, that position being outside linebacker in the 3-4. So I think this narrows it down. You have McPhee, maybe Acho is in the picture.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll bring Anderson up from the practice squad,
Yeah.
who's supposed to be very fast. And you sort of narrow it down to guys who really are the type of players who fit that position, as opposed to trying to fit guys like Allen and Young and Houston into a position that maybe they're really not fitted for. They gave it their best shot. They looked at it for the exhibition season and 3 regular season games. Now I think they're going to try to hone it down.
Yeah.
So,
You had a good comment earlier in one of our texting sessions back and forth where you thought they're going to, I think you put it where they're going to cut and paste this season until they find their guys, which I think is what's going to happen.
yeah.
And when I looked at some of the comments online yesterday after the Jared Allen thing, well, the meatballs came out immediately.
I'm laughing.
What
when
are, what are
told
you
me
getting rid of Allen for? You ought to get rid of that Cutler.
Actually, it was another letter inserted into his name.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what you should be doing.
I have to laugh. I think I've said this, and I say this about quite a few players. I'm neither a huge Cutler fan, nor am I a huge Cutler detractor. I think under the right circumstances, he could be successful. I think you're always going to get a certain
gonna be a middle of the
number
road.
mistakes from him, but
He's gonna
that's
be a
the nature of the beast.
No matter what the talent level appears to be, he's always going to be middle of the road.
But I always find it amusing especially after, and I'm not going to blame Jimmy Clausen because I didn't see the game, but everything I've read is that they really narrowed down, let's say, their playlist for Clausen in this particular instance. And they had no turnovers, so that they achieved, but they didn't gain much offense either. But I always find it interesting. You don't have Jay Cutler. Who do you have? Okay, who's it going to be? Are we going to magically, what is Johnny Unitas going to come back from the dead, the quarterback or something? I don't know.
I don't
Who
know.
are they going to replace him with?
Is the ghost of Sid Luckman going to come?
Exactly.
strolling?
So when I hear this stuff, Jim, it boggles my mind.
It's amazing. You're going to deal with what you've got. I guess the only thing I was a little curious about Sunday, and we were having problems with our TV, so I really didn't see the game, was Jeremy Langford didn't even get out on the field, as far as I know.
Yeah, you know what?
That kind of puzzled me.
I think that's going to be rectified eventually because I have to say this, and again, I'm just trying to look at these things realistically, not as who's a favorite player or who's been an excellent player. Matt Forte, still a good player, has been a very good player.
Yeah.
Matt Forte is another guy who's not going to be a long-term guy with the Bears. So
he doesn't have a contract past this season.
Past this season. So Jeremy Langford, okay, may not have carried the ball Sunday, but you know what? You're probably gonna see a lot of Jeremy Langford. I think there's a very good reason why the Bears, with a lot of places where they could shore things up, are carrying 4 running backs. And I think the reason is you have Matt Forte, who at 30 years old is likely not going to be here next year.
Right.
And Jaquiz Rogers, I think, is another one of those guys who's going to be here for a year and then on to the next stop the next year. So you still will have Langford, the future, unless there's really somebody in the draft that they like way better, is going to probably be Langford and Carey.
Yeah.
So I'm not, I'd like to see Langford play and see what he can do, but the fact that he didn't carry doesn't really make much difference.
No, and I guess it just kind of made me wonder what the thought process was, because you're getting beat, your offense isn't moving.
Right.
Yeah. Here, go in and see what you can do.
Now, the one thing I would like to say, though, a lot of people are saying, okay, the defense performed well, or relatively well compared to other weeks, and they got some pressure on Russell Wilson. But I'm going to say this. The Seahawks I've seen play twice. I saw them play against Green Bay, and I shouldn't say saw them play, but saw the last part of the Bears game, and I pretty much know what they did. I'll say this right up front, and people say, "Hey, they got all this talent," which they have a lot of talent, but they are going. I don't think they're going anywhere.
I don't think they're going anywhere this year either. Marshawn Lynch didn't get much time.
Yeah.
They, people keep viewing. People keep trying to say Russell Wilson should be a 30 attempts a game kind of quarterback.
Yeah, but who's he going to throw to?
That's the pride. That's the point.
They
haven't. I think maybe they finally figured out what to do with Jimmy Graham.
Right, which is good for them.
Yeah.
But I'll say this: Jimmy Graham now will probably be the main target because their wide receivers are not the type that are going to really strike fear into the other team's heart. So right now, I read a stat in the paper today that I think Marshawn Lynch has carried the ball, let's say, in the upper 30s for the season, 38 times, I think.
Yeah.
Almost 1/3 of those carries have resulted in a loss of yards. So I'm thinking, Marshawn Lynch is another guy who I'm guessing is around 30, held out during the offseason. So what really bugs me about, now we're the armchair experts, right? But I say the real experts should be talking about things. The likelihood is for a guy like Marshawn Lynch at his age and the fact that he held out, and I give him all the props he deserves. A very good runner. I don't think he's like a great runner, but a very good runner, tough guy. He could be at that point where he's not going to be that productive anymore. And, everybody will say, Marshawn Lynch.
Right.
That's a name. But the reality may be just like you say Jared Allen. Jared Allen is not the Jared Allen that he was.
No.
And Marshawn Lynch may be in that category too. So you're down to maybe 2 really dynamic offensive weapons with the Seahawks, which would be the quarterback, Wilson, and the tight end, or however they're going to use him, Graham. And you certainly take a big risk when they start to run Russell Wilson a lot because, obviously you're always going to have the chance of injury. But I found it interesting in the Packer game, I believe it was, that they started to run Wilson because there was no other thing that they could do.
They didn't have any alternative.
Yeah.
No, I know. What do you think, and I'm just happen to be glancing at the same article you just talked about here where you saw that thing about Marshawn Lynch being tackled for no gain or negative yardage on 13 of his 38 carries. Interesting question here. Was the conservative game plan for Jimmy Clausen an indictment of the Bears' backup quarterback or an acknowledgement of the degree of difficulty?
Well, I read that and I didn't quite understand it, to be honest with you, because an indictment of Jimmy Clausen or how did they put
The
it?
degree of difficulty.
Are-
Degree of
they're the
difficulty of
same
your
thing, aren't
opponent? Your degree of difficulty of your opponent?
Yeah, it doesn't really make it clear.
It doesn't. It really. It was. What I think what they were trying to do is match this up against the Seattle defense. Mm-hmm. Okay, because they talked about the fact that Clausen's 61.6 passer rating was the third best by a backup quarterback against the Seattle defense at CenturyLink Field since 2011.
Thanks, John.
Add the Rams, Kellen Clemens, 65.6 in a 27-9 loss in 2003, and Sean Hill, 65.5 in a 20-6 loss last season. Mm-hmm. Both came in with at least 7 consecutive starts. Both, Clausen was only making his first start. So if you want to view it that way, Clausen didn't have that bad of a game.
Yeah, I suppose. I read that stat and it went out of my mind until you reread it. I'm not a big stat guy, but that is a fairly valuable stat, I think, because the Seattle's home field advantage is high. Probably higher than most places. So it's difficult for most quarterbacks to play well there. So. That is, and the fact that you said the other two quarterbacks, Clemens and
Sean Hill,
had
some starts,
a number of starts prior to that is also an interesting stat. And Clausen being the first start that he's had this season, and in that atmosphere. You know what I would prefer to see though, Jim. Honestly, you're in that game. Seattle really needs to win the game. I would have been just as happy to see them let Jimmy Clausen hang it out a little bit. Although the reality is, without Jeffrey in the game, there was nothing to hang out.
He had nothing to hang out. He was in the same position as Wilson. Mm-hmm. You've got receivers that,
Yeah, they're not. They're going to. Put the fear of God in anybody.
They're not going to put the fear of God in anyone. Clausen had to go to Martellus Bennett.
Right. He's got Martellus Bennett, and he's got Forte. The big knock on what he did is that he only threw the ball to Forte 3 times. But the reality is, Seattle also knows who's out there. And it could be that the opportunity to throw to Forte wasn't there either. They know what he could do, and they know what the Bears are probably going to try to do. Mm-hmm. So it may not have just been there. So I would say I think Jay Cutler, had he been in there, I think it would have been a little bit better, a little bit more competitive. But you know what? I'm just like John Fox said, he's sort of, they say he's given sort of a wishy-washy – what do they call it? Vote of confidence to what Clausen did. But I think, it's his game plan and and Adam Gase's game plan. I think they tried to minimize mistakes. They didn't want the game to get too far away from them. I think they did accomplish a couple things. Even though they didn't move the ball offensively, it was good to see that their philosophy was not to get the ball in the hands of the Seahawks, or try to keep it out of the Seahawks' hands. And when the Seahawks had it, they didn't really run all over the Bears by any stretch. No. So the Bears played pretty okay.
Yeah. I mean, looking at the numbers, I think the only thing that kind of jumped out at me on the numbers was when your punter has 10 times more yardage than
that was a great stat that you texted me, Jim. Yeah. That was a great stat.
when your punter has 10 times more yardage than your
that's telling you
quarterback's
something.
passing yards, that tells you about something on the game.
Yeah, that's for sure.
You know.
Now, I would say this. A lot of people are saying this is going to be a forever process. I'm going to say this.
No.
I think you may see some light at the end of the tunnel. It might be one of those years where you see some light at the end of the tunnel by the end of the year, because I don't care how veteran the coaching staff is. When you have this sort of mishmash of players they have, and I'm not saying that to down the players, because I think there's talent there, but the talent is not fitting what the coaches want to do at this point. So the coaches are working their best with what they've got. They're trying to sort it all out. It sometimes it takes a while, and you know what? It's not like, again, it's not like Jared Allen or John Bostic are bad players, or say if Houston or Lamar Houston or Willie Young go. It's just that they're no longer fits for the situation we have, and it's better to, trim it down, get some guys some playing time that you at least have a possibility of being interested in keeping down the road, and do it that way.
Yeah. Who else do you think is a possibility of going other than Willie Young and Lamar Houston?
Well, you know what? The one name that pops into my mind, and and strictly because it seems like they are, I'll put it the most positive way I can, they're disagreeing with a lot of the personnel decisions of Phil Emery. I would say, even though he's a young guy, a guy who might not be on solid ground would be possibly Kyle Fuller.
I think Kyle Fuller is one. I think based on the number of snaps, at least he got into the game last week and everything else, I think Brock Vereen.
Yeah, that might be another guy.
Is-
They really
is,
like Amos a lot. Or
yeah.
However, I don't know. I heard him say Amos but I say Amos.
Yeah. Alan Ball played a better game.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be some help.
Yeah, Jim,
Because he got eaten up in the Packer game.
the other thing that I wanted to say to you is today in the paper they had, I think the article was sort of alluding to, it was by the numbers, and it was about the Cubs. And, and I'm going to be the first to call myself on this. I panned a lot of trades the Cubs made with Epstein and Hoyer, and they've turned out to be good ones. So they are astute observers of talent. I think, I'll tell you, it's really important for the Cubs, and I'll get back to the Bears here because we're on that. It's really going to be important for the Cubs to keep those guys, because I could see with Epstein and Hoyer being in the management team, us maybe getting to the point where we're sort of Cardinal-like. Now, we may do it differently than the Cardinals. We may have two guys who are such good evaluators of talent that we could get to the same point where the Cardinals are on a yearly basis if we keep them.
Yeah.
But what I'm going to say is,
that's the objective, really.
I think that the Bears, and people are going to laugh because we're 0-3, we haven't looked that good. But, you take guys like Alan Ball and Tracy Porter. They're not great players. But I think when I say cut and paste, those are the types of guys that are going to fill in till we can get the right guys. Relate those guys to guys like Donnie Murphy or whoever else you could name that was with the Cubs.
Feldman. Look what Scott Feldman brought.
Yeah. So,
Currency.
I think they know now. Is Bears management saying that, and we'll use Porter and Ball as examples, are they saying they're great players? No. But they're saying these are serviceable NFL players. They know how to play the game. They're not going to be great for us, but they're not going to kill us on a weekly basis either. And these are the type of guys they're going to get to fill. A guy like, now you haven't seen him because he was out with mono for a while. Sam Acho might be in the same category.
Right.
So you're going to see those types of guys. They have Vladimir Dukas on the offensive line. Same type of guy.
What they're looking for is their own Chris D'Onofrio.
Yeah, exactly. exactly.
Oh,
And,
by the way, you want an obscure stat?
go ahead.
Last night when Denorfia hit that home run on the first pitch in extra innings to break up a scoreless tie, according to what I read this morning, you know how many times that had happened prior in Major League history?
No.
None.
Wow. Holy cripe. 0. Wow.
That's
a good stat.
Shocked me.
That's a good stat. Yeah, that is interesting. Wow.
You know,
But,
I'm starting to see the similarities here. That they are going to go through and they are going to look for guys that can fill the role. And it's a I never heard it referred to before until you started to hear it out of Epstein and Hoyer. Guys that might be currency.
Sure.
Guys that we can flip. Guys that will be able to flip for what do we need? We need talent. We need draft picks.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Because what did you have this year? 6 draft picks?
Yeah. I mean, 6 draft picks. And,
Did
they all stick with the team? I think they all stuck with the team in some form or other.
I think so.
I'm pretty sure.
I think so. I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah, because I think the big guy that they drafted last, whose name I can never say, I'll say Tayo Fabulous.
Yeah,
Fabulous.
yeah.
I believe he's with the team. He's either active or on the practice squad, I would imagine, because he's just too big of a body for them to ignore. So, especially with him being an offensive lineman. So, but I think that I think they're going to be. I think they're going to be fine. I think they will be fine. And I think again, I'm going to say now. I hear people say, okay, we may lose to Oakland, and we may lose to the Lions, and we got to play the Chiefs. You know what? I'll say this. I think we could get a couple wins out of those 3 weeks because the Raiders are improved. But one thing that you'll see from an improving team that's not quite there yet is they'll have their real high points, and then the frustrating thing. And if the Bears were in this position that the Raiders are in now, the same thing would happen to them.
Sure.
They'll have some real points where you really get frustrated and say,
Sure.
well, how did we lose to the Bears? And
Sure.
I don't think that's out of the question.
Oakland's 2.5-point favorites.
Yep.
Right now.
Yep.
Which I think is a fair assessment.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So, but what, Jim, I saw in the I'll tell you what, for Tuesday morning, a lot of interesting stuff in today's paper. Did you see that our man Derrick Rose, who I think 2 years ago after the first time he got hurt, I said trade him while you can, and they obviously didn't listen to me. They can't even hear me.
They can't even
unless
hear
they're
you.
inside River Road.
Yeah.
But he's definitely I'm aiming at that big free agent.
He's and this is a guy when
he's
signed.
He's going to be worth nothing.
Yeah, and this is a guy when he signed his last contract said, "I'm going to be here forever."
Yeah. Well.
Yeah. Well, I'm never going to leave. Well, never is a long, long time.
Yeah, that's true.
And eventually, somewhere along the line, it's going to happen.
Well, all I can say about him is he's got some wonderful people around him, some great advisors, because he's just blowing it.
His advisors are just going
fantastic.
You go from the uncomfortable press conference that Kane had with the Blackhawks on their opening day to this guy going around going, well, I'm a great player. I know it. Yeah. And I can't wait for free agency in 2 years.
Yeah.
That's okay, good luck to you.
The good luck is right, because by that time you're going to be worth not much.
This is the kind of thing where you'd like to say, well, listen, Derek, I really hoping in opening game of the year you blow your knee out.
I'll tell you what, the Bulls what I would say is this is not going to be on their new head coach Fred Hoiberg, but talk about maybe a team that does not fit apparently what the coach's style is going to be. The Bulls would be it.
Oh yeah. I'm trying to figure out how this team is going to look. I can't wait to watch them once just to see.
It's you know what if I was the Bulls again, I would try to get rid of Derrick Rose whatever way I could, and start looking at more playing time for guys like McDermott. I think there's a guy who is a potential scorer for you.
I think so too. Dougie McBuckets. I'm just looking at Rose's quote. I know I'm great. There's a lot of people that don't know I'm great. That's the thing. But it's cool. I know I can hoop. You can put me anywhere, and I know how to play basketball. I can't get mad at people for how they criticize my game and the way that I play or the way that I used to play. I know I'm great, and that's it.
You know what? When a guy starts talking like that, you know he's not great.
That's right.
No question about that.
Yeah, at that point in time, you start to look at him and say, okay.
Not so much for him saying that, but I think the way what I read into that comment is you're almost trying to convince yourself. I mean, Derrick Rose trying to convince himself. I'm not so sure that that's what he actually believes. And I don't know. The nice thing, I guess, about sports is that you can't hide. So whatever you do is out there for everybody to see. And I remember you and I were texting. I was watching. I didn't see much of the playoffs, but it was in the Milwaukee series. And I don't know if it doesn't matter which game it was, but I had texted you that Derrick Rose looked. I want to say that he looked tired. Or he looked whatever. And I don't know that he's ever really got his conditioning to the point where it should be.
I don't know.
And I really think that a lot of people seem to be taking sides against Tom Thibodeau. Are we ready for a break, John? Or no?
Finish your thought. Finish your thought. I'm watching the clock.
A lot of people were criticizing Thibodeau because he wanted to practice Rose or say Gibson or whoever else was hurt. And they, it seemed that upper management didn't want that. They wanted those guys to approach things a different way. But when you looked at what Rose was doing out on the court in that Milwaukee series, at least in the game that I saw, maybe Thibodeau was the guy who was right. I mean, you're sort of torn because a guy might be hurting a little bit, but you still need to have some conditioning to be out there.
Yeah.
So what are you supposed to do? I mean,
yeah.
And
I think the question will be as we get into the season is to see how Hoiberg manages the minutes. Let's take a station break. We'll be right back.
Yeah.
You're listening to Armchair Experts from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Jack FM 89.7, WRHS FM Norwich, and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Wednesday, September the 30th, the year of our Lord, 2015, with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro. And this is Jack FM 89.7, WRHS FM 89.7, Norwich, Illinois. And now, back to Jim Leon and Rich Massaro.
Thank you there, Doctor of the Dials. I think our pal Roger Badish was right as I listened to the music when he was here the last time. It does have sort of that Dave Baum kind of...
Baum.
If you think back to the old Dave Baum, the chat champ on WIND.
Yeah, when he said that, it strike ring a bell, I guess I would say.
Yeah.
Jim, did you see? I know you just got here, and I have the jump on you because I had a chance to read the paper. But did you see? Interesting. The Hawks. Wanted to talk a little bit about them. They have gotten rid of both of the veteran defensemen that were in camp, Haida and Wisnowski, are both gone.
And I didn't realize Thomas Kopetsky was in camp.
Thomas Kopetsky and Jake Dahl were both in camp. They're both, I think both of them are gone now.
Kopetsky is gone.
Kopetsky is as of today.
Yeah.
The interesting thing, and I don't know how you say Daniel, P-A-I-L-L-E's name. I'll say Daniel Paille.
Paille,
or
I don't know.
Whatever. But it looks like the two Swedish defensemen Svedberg, and who's the other one? Is it Erickson?
Yeah, I think
Are
it was
gonna.
Erickson.
Oh, it's there.
Yeah.
Just take a look.
Yeah.
It's sort of right after. The Hawks are pretty much right there.
Svedberg and Gustafson.
Svedberg and Gustafson look like either they're both going to make the team or one of them will win out.
Well, Victor Svedberg is 6'9".
Yeah,
Hui.
big man. I'm
I
telling you.
hope he's. Last one I remember this tall was John Scott.
John Scott.
And he was a dork.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure Svedberg is different. If they've got him down to the point where he looks like he's one of the guys who's going to make the team, and really he it's pretty impressive where these two guys are at because Haida
and Wisnowski.
I saw Wisnowski play in the game that they played against St. Louis, and I'll tell you, at 39, Wisnowski still looks smooth. He could skate and look good, but I believe that salary cap wise, that neither he or Haida, however good they played, was going to be a fit, and so they weren't cut because of performance; they were cut because of salary. And but it's pretty and Vili Paca, who was one of the Black Knights last year, is also gone, probably to Rockford. But I'll tell you, it's a very impressive thing that Svedberg and who was the other defenseman?
Gustafson.
That Svedberg and Gustafson have
Eric
made
Gustafson.
it to this point. So that's pretty good.
The last two, they seem to be vying. Both of them are competing for that seventh defenseman spot because Roosevelt isn't expected to be ready by opening night.
Although I have to say this, I think that seventh defenseman spot has the potential to get a lot of minutes because I don't believe that Rundblad or Van Riemsdyk is totally solid in terms of what the coaches think.
I don't think Rundblad is. Mm-hmm. I think they're still high on Van Riemsdyk.
Well, I think they're high on both of them, but
Yeah.
Joel Quenneville being the coach and them being, still fairly raw and not named Jonathan Taves or Patrick Kane or those guys who really played well as young guys, they're subject to, Quenneville having them be in a scratch on, various nights.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what did you think of? What did you think about the story that came out during the week? And I'm surprised because I wouldn't expect him to be that way. Ed Hockley making that comment to Cam Newton that you're not old enough to get that call.
I don't know. It sounds like something that could be said to me. Because honestly, I officiate. Obviously, I'm not a professional official, but I officiate, and that comes into play. I've said a lot of times, and I don't want to get into officiating, but there's a couple things. I think the classy players will get the calls. I'm not saying Cam Newton's not, but I don't know what the circumstance that this was supposedly said in. I don't know what that circumstance was. But I'll tell you this, good teams will get better calls than bad teams.
Oh, sure.
Strictly because of the way they play. The
Sure.
official, because look at it this way. You could say the umpires, referees, whatever they are professionals. I'm not talking about myself, but I'm talking about in professional sports. They are professionals. But you're still observing the game, and you're sort of enjoying or not enjoying the game. And when teams are good and they play well, you enjoy that, and they're going to get. That's why the good teams get the breaks because they're good.
I've seen enough. High school and semi-pro games, especially the semi-pro games, where some of the officials and you see them enough that there's some crews out there and some guys out there who just want to get the game over.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
And either they are going to ignore the calls,
right,
or they're going to stick it to you for one reason or the other, just because they think they can.
Yeah.
There was a decent official in the semi-pro, did a lot of games, happened to see, and actually he did get an opportunity during the referee lockout to do a exhibition game, Craig Ochoa. He didn't do very well as a referee. He blew a call. Mm-hmm. And his explanation of it was there. But, I mean, that was a guy who would always be straight down the middle.
Let me ask you this, Jim. As long as we got onto this subject, I was in a conversation a day or so ago, and I was, I don't like instant replay, never have. Now we have it in baseball, and I think whoever I was talking to, they were talking about the idea that on Sunday night baseball with the Cubs and Pirates, that at one point somebody, I don't know who exactly, lost track of the balls and strikes.
That happens occasionally.
And so they had a big long thing with replay to see, to I guess to check it to see what the count was and whether. So so I'm just in this conversation and I'm saying I never have liked replay. Let me run this idea by you. I actually, last Thursday night, I was at Norridge Park watching a couple games, and the guy who runs the league was not asking me, but I was talking to him, and the umpire that was there was 3 games scheduled, and for some reason there was a mix-up. I guess he didn't realize that. He could only do 2. So this guy, not knowing that I umpire, says this to me, and I said, well, I don't live far. I'll go home. I'll get my stuff. I'll umpire the 3rd game. So I umpire the game. I had a very good game, made one really what I consider a bad call. Now, I don't think it had an effect on the outcome of the game, but here's what I want to run by you. Had had this been a case where you had access to instant replay, I would have asked for it, so I could have got myself out of. I'm not going to reverse my call.
No.
I knew that I had missed the call.
Mm-hmm.
I would have asked for a replay and then reversed myself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Instead of the coaches, who are going to throw the flag whenever, and they can only do it a couple times in football. What would you think of the idea? Because I'm a firm believer. I saw a game last weekend, and I don't remember who was in it, but there were a couple things like, man, the rules of football are getting screwy, because there was one case where a guy sort of slid into the end zone. I would have called it a touchdown. They did call it a touchdown in the field, but then they looked at it, of course, and his knee hit like 6 inches before he got in, so he wasn't in, and they had to, do that.
The ball didn't break the plane.
Right, And then there was another nice catch that were in the end zone where the guy kept his feet in, but his butt hit before he had full possession of the ball.
All
his
right.
feet were totally in.
All right.
So that wasn't a touchdown. And I'm like,
Okay,
these rules are really getting to me now.
That's getting nitpicking now.
It's very
but
nitpicking.
I understand their point.
So my thing would be, I believe, now not to say an official doesn't blow a call, but I also know as an official that when I blow a call, I usually know it. If it's sketchy, if I'm not totally sure, I know that. I think that most of the time the officials' gut reaction to a thing, like the couple plays I just described, are right on the money. Those were touchdowns, both of them. They should have been, but by rule, they're not. Okay, so now they got to stop the game to look at the replay. But I think that the officials should be the ones that are able to ask for the replay and nobody else, because they know if if it's questionable in their minds whether they made a mistake.
In a sense, that's really what's the college game. I mean, you're in college football.
Okay.
You get the call from upstairs.
Okay. That's
okay.
Good.
If you on the field are saying, "Please look at this play,"
right,
you're jeopardizing your credibility for the future.
It shouldn't be that way, though.
No, it shouldn't be, but you are jeopardizing your credibility for the future.
Yeah.
I had another quote from an umpire that, and it escaped me about, I'm right no matter what. But I think there was one I remember, a story I'm reading about the guy slid into second base on a steal, big swipe tag, and the umpire just stood there for a second, just looking at it, trying to, remember what he did. and you got the runner screaming, and you got the second baseman screaming. You got the runner going, "Am I safe or am I out?" And the second baseman is going, "What is he? What is he?" And the umpire took control right away. He just looked at them both and barked, "He ain't nothing till I say so."
Yeah, yeah. Well, which is also a really good thing, because sometimes you just have to sit there and think about it for a second.
You have to replay it in your mind,
Yeah.
what you just saw.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. You have to think about that. You watch basketball. I mean, I give the pro officials a lot of credit because the game moves so quickly.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah, that a lot of times you get the Maybelline calls afterwards, the makeups. So I give them a lot of credit for that. If you've got an official that's saying we need to look at this play because I'm not sure what I did, you're jeopardizing your credibility down the road.
As you're talking about this, I'm thinking about officiating in general, and I'm thinking that's why baseball is still the best game of all, because I'm thinking from an official standpoint, the umpire, regardless if he's a base umpire or a home plate umpire, has the best look at the plays he's calling than, say, somebody in the stands.
Oh, yeah.
But
Yeah.
you can't say the same in football, basketball,
No.
or hockey, because, as you say, that game is moving so quick. You could be, in really good position and still not see something. And,
That's
and
right.
the fan in the stands probably does have a better look at it than you do.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've mentioned before a semi-pro game years ago. There was a pass down the sidelines, and from where we were up in the booth, we could see he was out of bounds when he caught it. He didn't come down in bounds. Mm-hmm. And the official down there was out of position. And I saw him running over. And I said to Arthur Brooks and I were doing the game, and I think the official's name was Willie. I said, Willie was out of position. He's going to try to sell this call. I said, and he's going to have it wrong. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And he came over there, and he was bringing his hands up to signal a reception. And the official from the other side of the field came sprinting over, waving his hands off right away. Now, nobody complained about it because I think everyone realized, the right call was being made from that side of the field. Mm-hmm. But here was the guy that had the best view of the play, that theoretically should have had the best view of the play,
Sure.
but somehow got himself turned around. Mm-hmm. And he was going to try to sell it because he missed the play.
Sure.
And it looked good to him, but he missed the play.
Yeah. Yeah.
And another thing, you talk about having getting the balls and strike count out of order. Mm-hmm. There would be at least, I could count on at least one game a year where one of us would have to come down
For the downs?
for the downs.
For the downs.
One of us would have to come down with the play call, with the play chart, because we used to keep a down chart and a play call, and a play-by-play sheet, and correct the box.
That's something that I'm surprised. You have enough officials in football, at least at the higher levels, that it shouldn't happen. But depending on exactly what's happening on the field, I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often, that they lose track of the downs, because it can be pretty chaotic, especially if you have multiple flags, or if you have a question, you got a big pile up, and you're trying to get to see who recovered a fumble. It can get pretty, it just gets chaotic, and you can lose track of what's, you're the side judge, you're involved in a play somehow, and now you just forget to have the box change.
Right.
It can happen, and that's really your job. The other guy, you can't be counting on the other guys, the umpire or the referee or anybody like that, back judge, to bail you out, because that's not their job.
No,
so
no.
It's not an easy job.
It can happen, and I'm surprised. We'd try to signal sometimes when we knew it was happening. or
To help 'em out.
To help 'em out, but sometimes they wouldn't pick it up, and we'd say, "Well, here's our 5th down play for the year."
I think a couple years ago I'm watching a college game, and this had nothing to do with the downs, but it had to do with just how difficult the game could be for an official. And the back judge, it was it was in a red zone play. The pass was thrown to the back of the end zone. The player had to leap and make the catch. Came down inbounds, but just right on the edge of the end zone. And the official saw, you could tell that he was in perfect position, saw the whole thing, made sure that the catch was, not a bobble. It was a good catch. Made sure the feet came down. Everything was good, and then signaled a TD. And I'm looking at the game, and I think whoever I was watching it with thought I was nuts. I go, "That's a great call." And again, it's like we were talking with Roger last time we did the show, where you see the finished product and everybody's like, "Well, of course that's the call," or "Of course, the paper looks good," or "Of course this happened or that happened," but they don't realize everything that went into, say in this case, the call.
Right.
I mean, this guy had to do 2 or 3 things and do them right and accurately, and he did them very well.
Right.
And it was almost like a check down list. You could see he made sure of this, and then he made sure of that, and it was really a beautiful call.
Yeah.
But on TV, it looks so seamless that you're really not thinking about it.
No. No.
So.
And I mean, you have to remember in situations when you're and we run into the same issues when you and I do a game.
Mm-hmm.
When we're upstairs and we're on the radio or TV and we're doing a game,
Mm-hmm.
I'm have to focus on the ball, the play, wherever it's going. You have the opportunity to kind of view it overall.
Right.
And that official has the same duty.
Right.
He just can't watch the ball. He's got to watch the whole thing.
Right.
You got to have you can't have narrow vision, tunnel vision. You have to look at everything.
Yeah, you do. You really do.
Yeah.
It's not an easy job. Jim, let me ask you this. This is interesting as can be, but we have the Cubs clinching a playoff spot. The Sox
Sox
have half a game out of last place.
Sox have a lot of work to do this season. Boy, oh boy.
Yeah.
I'm just glancing at a couple of things. According to as far as the White Sox, according to the Fangraphs in-depth metric system for measuring player value and performance, the Sox rank 30th among 30 major league teams.
Yeah.
And in defense and in offense.
Yeah, pretty poor.
And this, I kept scratching my head all year going, what happened here?
Well, Jim, I tell you what, I'm not saying it's the whole problem because obviously it's not. But it seems to me, and I'm not trying to criticize Rick Hahn, okay?
No.
And it seems that the paper, he must be a nice guy because you don't read anything unfavorable about him. But I have to say, if everything else on the Sox is as backwards as what I'm just going to mention, and I've mentioned this on the show before, and I also understand why it is the way it is, but I'm going to go back to Adam LaRoche and Jose Abreu. Jose Abreu is not a good defensive first baseman.
No.
He's average, okay?
Right.
Good hitter.
Right.
Adam LaRoche is a very good defensive first baseman, and I believe that his hitting problems this year, I'm not going to say it's totally because he's a DH and not a first baseman. It could be other things, but I don't think they would be as acute as they are if he was playing first base where he should actually be.
Right.
Now, I will say this. I understand what the Sox are doing. Abreu's the younger player. He's probably going to be the first baseman for a while. So you're not going to put the younger guy as the DH and the older guy out there at first base. But that begs the question, why the heck did you do that in the first place?
Right. You talk about the issues regarding defense. Alexei Ramirez, 19th among 21 players at his position in defensive wins above replacement. Jose Abreu, 18th among 20.
Yeah.
Cabrera, thought to be an upgrade over Diane Viciedo, 14th among 15 left fielders.
And why did they? Well, I could see why they maybe would think that, but why would they think he would be that much of an upgrade? I don't know.
I don't know.
And the one thing I would say about
Adam Eaton,
Viciedo
20th
is he
and
had
22.
a heck of an arm,
Yeah.
which at least made up for some things.
Yeah.
So it's been the amazing thing is, Alexi Ramirez, who I like, has had a really obviously not a good year defensively, but it also I have to get back to the idea of the Cuban ball players who are in this country in general and their ages, Jim. I didn't mean to get on this subject. I didn't think we were going to get there. But when you look at guys like Alexi Ramirez, when Alexi came, I remember, was he an outfielder or did they play him at second base at first? I know one year he played second base exclusively.
He played. I think from what I remember him to be, he's always been an infielder.
But this is what I'm going to say. Alexi Ramirez, the possibility that he's older than what they say is, I think, is there. Same thing would go for Jose Abreu, Yasiel Puig, Yoenis Cespedes. For the Cuban players, I'm going to say,
except Ramirez isn't Ramirez isn't Cuban. I think he's Dominican Republic.
No, he came over from
Cuba. Did he come from Cuba? Okay.
But they, for whatever reasons, their ages are, I'm going to say they're incorrect.
Possible.
And
very possible.
So you may be saying Alexi Ramirez, who looked really good, if he's older than what they say he is, he may have just fell off the radar because guess what? He's older than you think he is.
Yeah. Well, we've got a couple of minutes. Obviously, this has been an exciting season on the north side, but I think one of the things that everybody's got to start thinking about, and was an interesting article here too. You got a Cub farm system that isn't really long on strength of pit in as far as pitchers right now. What are you going to do? You're going to open up the books a little bit and take a look. I know Joe Madden would love to have David Price in a Cub uniform.
Who wouldn't? Him and about 30 other teams.
That's right. Or are you going to look? You're going to look for somebody in the next tier down. And I hate to bring up the name Jeff Samardzija, but he's one of the names in it.
Well, I'm so glad. That slipped my mind when I read this article. And these, I don't know, Jeff Samardzija. Do you think it's possible he's paying off the Chicago media? I don't know.
Well, I always wondered if Mark Trestman was paying off a reporter to make him sound good for football.
Man, Jim. I mean, Jeff Samardzija is one of those guys. And again, here's another example of a guy. I don't dislike Jeff Samardzija. I like Jeff Samardzija. But the reality is, I mean, look at his record. I mean, he does not. He's not a winning pitcher. Has not been a winning pitcher.
He's never been a winning pitcher. I liken him to Floyd Bannister back in the '80s, who got a big deal and was thought of, a big deal for that time in the '80s.
Sure.
And I think he was over 500 at least one year here, maybe '83 with the White Sox.
Yeah.
But I never viewed him as much, and it's the same thing. I look at Samardzija and I'm going, why?
Well, Jeff Samardzija is, I'm not going to say your poster boy, but he is a typical guy that will really get the manager in trouble in the sense he's got great stuff, they say. I mean, I can't say that firsthand. But it never seems to result in any real productive seasons. So those are the guys you spend a lot of time on, you spin your wheels with these guys, and it never seems to work. My prediction would be this, though. At some point in his career, there will be 1 year where it really works, and everybody else up. They'll expect it after that, and it won't happen again.
And it won't happen. Jeff Samardzija is to Chicago baseball, since he's played on both sides of town, what Jay Cutler is to Chicago football.
He is, actually.
Here's a guy who's, and you said he's the kind of guy, Samardzija's the kind of guy that's going to get a manager in trouble. Mm-hmm. Cutler's the kind of guy who's going to get a head coach in trouble.
They are. It's, because you look at that great potential.
Yeah.
I stopped short because I thought it was cutting your thought off there.
No, that's all right. Now I forgot it.
Okay. Because I'm looking, I go, I think Jim was.
John's laughing because he says, "Well, you're old."
But Jim, though there are players like that even in Little League. You'll look at a kid and say, "Oh my God, this kid is what talent." What was Yogi Berra's old saying? 90% of the game is half mental.
Let's see, 90% of the game is physical, and then the other half is mental.
Right, and the other half is mental.
Right.
Well, I would say, that's probably a really good assessment because you really have to have the physicality, but there is a huge part of it that's mental. I would say, your best players are your most consistent, and that has to do with mental.
Yeah. It's interesting, and I was glancing, and I think what I was going to say is talking about people that have a good attitude and can deal with it no matter what, as I'm looking at the fact that Chris Bryant played first base last night.
I saw that.
That's 5 positions he's played this year.
Yeah. Well, that's the new Ben Zobrist.
I think so. Would he look good in a Cub uniform next year? Ben Zobrist.
Ben Zobrist was. I'll be interested to see what the playoff roster is because they have a lot of choices to make here.
I understand that the first for that game against Pittsburgh, his pitching staff is going to be 2 starters and all the rest relief pitchers.
Well, that makes sense. So he'll have those bench guys.
He'll have
That's an excellent move.
Yeah.
That's an excellent move.
I think that's a great move.
It is.
I think that's a great move because you can set your roster each round.
Yeah, that is because right now it would be a hard you go to the outfield. Who are you going to keep? You've got I didn't even know who the starters is because he mixes them around. But let's say you got Schwarber and you've got Fowler. You got Coghlan. You got Jackson, Denorfia,
Soler.
So you got 6, and as they get into the playoffs, I'm pretty sure all those 6 won't be active. But for that game, you definitely could use all of them.
Yeah,
and that's the game. That's the most important game of all because you don't go any. Here's
finish that thought, and I want to tell you about a call I heard on the score when I was driving here today.
You don't go anywhere without that game. The thing that's frightening me a little bit, Jim, about this game is the media keeps harping on how dominant Arrieta has been against the Pirates.
Yeah.
And what sort of frightens me is I believe in percentages. You're not going to be dominant all the time. And I just worry that even if he's a little off, that may be a bad thing. And then you're going to hear, the Cubs choked or Arrieta choked, and it'll be bull because, again, like I say.
Rick Tellender will have a week's worth of columns.
Yes. But go ahead. What did you hear?
I had to laugh. You just said, this game against Pittsburgh is, nothing's going to happen unless you do anything else. And
right.
Some guy called up the score and he said, the World Series is going to be like important games, and the championship and the division, those are going to be like really important games. But the most important game of all is going to be that one game against Pittsburgh. And like Spiegel and Goff went, duh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I thought, I listened to that and I thought, wow, some guy couldn't get in with Grobstein this morning. Grobstein would have done 20 minutes with him. Well, once again, for not preparing, we managed to fake our way through 63 minutes of
fun. I had fun.
Of fun and games once again. John's looking at us like, yeah, you guys do all right. Yeah, you guys do all right. All right. Let's wrap it up. We'll take off. Next time we get together in a couple of weeks, I guess we'll either be talking National League Division Series, or we'll kind of recap what happened on, October 7th or October 8th?
Is it what you talk about, the one-game playoff?
The one-game playoffs. It's the 7th or 8th. I can't remember.
I believe it's the I want to say the 7th.
Yeah, I think so. So we'll all be seeing what happens here. I said I don't know what it is, but I've got a funny feeling about this team. I don't know. I got a feeling.
What's the feeling?
Last time I had the same feeling was I watched one game of the playoffs in 2005, and I turned to the lady in my life at this point, and I looked at her and I said, "Get used to this phrase. You're world champion Chicago White Sox."
There you go.
I'm getting that feeling. I don't know if it's right yet.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see.
That's all I can say.
All right. That's it. We had a lot of fun. We'll catch you again in a couple of weeks. We are Taillights.
You have been listening to Armchair Experts from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Wednesday, September the 30th, the year of our Lord, 2015, on Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network with the WRHS FM sports announcers Jim Leon and Rich Massaro. This broadcast was directed by John DeVita, and special thanks to radio station manager Kevin Zeppelick of WRHS FM Norwich and the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, Mr. John Seconda. This broadcast was pre-recorded on Tuesday, September the 29th, the year 2015. Until next time, please be safe, and thanks for listening. And this is Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM, Norwich, Illinois. Thanks for listening and have a great day, everyone.